Welcome back to another episode of She's Evolving. I'm Elena, your host and resident endocrinologist. Today, we are diving into a topic that I see manifesting in my clinic every single day, not just in blood tests or hormone levels, but in the tired eyes of the women who sit across from me. We're talking about healthy boundaries, but we're not looking at them as just a social skill. We're looking at them as a vital tool for self-care, and perhaps most importantly, as the ultimate act of self-respect.
And I'm Julia, a clinical psychologist. I'm so glad we're tackling this, Elena, because in my practice, I've realized that for women our age, especially those of us navigating the complexities of the 40s, 50s, and beyond, the word no is often the most difficult word to pronounce, yet it's the one that holds the key to our mental and emotional freedom. If you've ever felt like you're running on empty because you're constantly pouring into everyone else's cup while yours is bone dry, this conversation is specifically for you.
It's a provocative thought, isn't it? That saying no to someone else is actually saying yes to yourself. I want to start our conversation today by getting a bit personal. Julia, you and I have talked about this off-air many times. We've both hit those walls where we realized our boundaries were paper thin.
Oh, absolutely. I remember a specific period a few years ago. I was 49, right in the thick of perimenopause. My sleep was terrible. My brain fog was at an all-time high. And yet, I was trying to be the perfect version of myself. I was saying yes to every extra patient, yes to every school committee my kids were involved in, and yes to every family demand. I remember sitting in my car after a long day, gripped by this overwhelming sense of resentment. And that was the red flag for me. Resentment is usually the first sign that a boundary has been crossed, or more likely, never set in the first place. I felt invisible, even though I was doing everything for everyone. That resonates so much with me, Julia. For me, it manifested physically. As a doctor, I thought I was immune to stress. I thought I knew how to manage it. But when I hit 50, my body just stopped cooperating. I was experiencing chronic fatigue and my cortisol levels were through the roof. I realized I was living in a state of constant hyper-vigilance. I was checking emails at 11 p.m., taking calls from patients on my weekends, and never once stopping to ask, what does Elena need right now? I felt like my body was betraying me, but the truth was, I was betraying my body by not protecting my time and energy. It was a bank up, a real shock to the system. It's that good girl conditioning, isn't it? We were raised to be nurturers, to be the glue that holds everything together. By the time we reach our 40s and 50s, that glue is often brittle. We feel like if we stop, everything will fall apart. But the cost is our health.
Exactly. And let's look at the science of that for a moment, because it's not just in our heads. When we fail to set boundaries, we stay in a chronic state of stress. From an endocrinology perspective, that means our adrenal glands are constantly pumping out cortisol. Over time, high cortisol interferes with everything. It disrupts our progesterone and estrogen balance, which are already fluctuating during these years. It leads to weight gain around the midsection, it destroys our sleep quality, and it even affects our bone density. So when I tell a patient she needs to set boundaries, I'm not just giving lifestyle advice. I'm actually prescribing a way to balance her hormones.
That is such a powerful way to put it, a prescription for hormonal balance. On the psychological side, the lack of boundaries leads to what we call role overload. For women in our age group, we are often the sandwich generation. We're still parenting teenagers or young adults, and we're starting to care for aging parents. If we don't have clear boundaries, we become a 24/7 service station. The psychological impact is a loss of identity. We forget who we are outside of what we do for others. We lose that sense of self-respect because we aren't honoring our own limits. I see this so often when women come in complaining about brain fog. Sometimes it's the drop in estrogen, yes, but often it's simply that their brains are open tabs that never close. They are tracking everyone's schedule, everyone's needs, everyone's emotional state. Julia, how do we start to explain to someone that their exhaustion might be linked to this lack of limits?
I usually start by asking them to identify their leaks. Where is your energy leaking out? Is it that friend who only calls to complain for 2 hours? Is it the boss who expects you to be available on Sundays? Is it the adult child who still expects you to do their laundry?
Once we identify the leak, we have to address the fear. The biggest myth about boundaries is that they are mean or selfish. We've been taught that a good woman is limitless, but that's a lie. A boundary is actually a bridge. It tells people how to love us and interact with us without us ending up hating them. I love that. How to love us without us ending up hating them. It reminds me of a question I get a lot in the clinic. A patient will say, "Elena, I'm so tired, but if I don't do it, nobody will. Is it even possible to change this late in the game?" It is absolutely possible, but it requires a shift in perspective. We have to stop viewing our worth through the lens of productivity. For many women 40 plus, their self-esteem is tied to being needed. If they aren't needed, they feel irrelevant. So setting a boundary feels like a threat to their value. We have to teach them that their value is inherent. It doesn't depend on how much they sacrifice.
And let's talk about the physical recalibration that happens when we do start saying no. I've seen patients whose chronic inflammatory markers actually go down once they quit that one toxic committee or start delegating household chores. Their sleep improves because their brain isn't on guard all night. It's a literal physical healing. But there's also the myth that if we change, we'll lose everyone. If I say no, my husband will be upset, or my friends won't like me anymore.
That's a very common fear. And here's the hard truth. Some people will be upset. Those who benefited from you having no boundaries will likely react poorly when you start setting them. But that's actually a confirmation that the boundary was necessary. Healthy relationships respect limits. If a relationship only works because you are sacrificing your well-being, is it a healthy relationship? We have to be willing to tolerate a little bit of someone else's discomfort to ensure our own survival.
That's a tough pill to swallow, but a necessary one. I often think about libido in this context too. I have so many women coming to me worried about their low sex drive. They think it's just menopause. And while hormones play a role, I always ask, how can you feel desire when you feel like a servant? If you've spent the whole day being a caregiver, a professional, a chef, and a maid without any boundaries, the last thing you want is more physical demands on your body. Boundaries are actually an aphrodisiac because they allow you to reclaim your body for yourself. Spot on, Elena. You cannot feel sexy or connected when you feel used. Reclaiming your time and your physical space is the first step toward reclaiming your pleasure. It's about saying, my body is mine, not a public utility. Let's move into some of the specific doubts we hear from our community. One question that came in recently was, how do I set boundaries with my aging parents without feeling like a bad daughter? This is such a sensitive area for our demographic. It is heart-wrenching. The guilt is real, but we have to distinguish between productive guilt and toxic guilt. Productive guilt happens when we actually do something wrong. Setting a limit so you don't burn out while caring for a parent isn't wrong. It's actually what allows you to keep caring for them in the long run. If you burn out, you're no good to them. Setting a boundary might mean saying, I can't come over every day, but I will be there Tuesday and Thursday. Or, I can't handle your finances. Let's find a professional to help. It's about finding the sustainable level of care. I think that word sustainable is key. We are playing the long game now. We want to live well into our 80s and 90s with vitality. We can't do that if we've spent our 50s being a human sacrifice. Another question we get often is about the workplace. I'm over 50, and I'm afraid that if I set boundaries, I'll be replaced by someone younger who says yes to everything. That's a fear rooted in ageism, and it's very potent. But here's the thing. At our age, our value isn't our hustle. It's our wisdom, our efficiency, and our perspective. A 25-year-old might stay until 10 p.m., but a 50-year-old with boundaries knows how to get the job done in half the time because she's focused. Setting boundaries at work is about teaching people how to treat you. If you answer an email at 2 a.m., you are telling your boss that your sleep doesn't matter. If you stop doing that, you are signaling that you are a high-value professional who manages her resources well. It's about modeling self-respect. If we don't respect our own time, why should anyone else? I've had to learn this in my own practice. I used to feel guilty for not being available 24/7. Now I realize that by having clear office hours and sticking to them, I am a better, more focused doctor for my patients when I am there. I'm not distracted by exhaustion.
Exactly. It's the oxygen mask principle. We've heard it 1,000 times, but we struggle to apply it. Elena, I've noticed that as we get older, our bodies actually force us to set boundaries. The hot flashes, the fatigue, it's almost like the body is saying, I can't carry this load anymore. You have to choose. That is so true. I often tell my patients to view their symptoms as messengers. A migraine isn't just a pain. It's a message that your nervous system is overwhelmed. That crashing fatigue in the afternoon is a message that you've overextended. If we listen to these messages, we can adjust our boundaries before a major health crisis happens. It's a form of preventative medicine, and it's a form of emotional evolution. In our 20s, we wanted to be liked. In our 30s, we wanted to be successful. In our 40s and 50s, the shift is toward being authentic, and you cannot be authentic without boundaries. Authenticity requires us to be honest about what we can and cannot do. It requires us to say, I love you, but I can't do this for you right now. As we start to wrap up this conversation, I want to reflect on the idea that this journey isn't a straight line. There will be days where you slip back into old patterns. There will be days where the guilt feels heavy. But every time you hold a boundary, you are strengthening a muscle. You are teaching your nervous system that it is safe to say no. And you are teaching the women around you, your daughters, your friends, your colleagues, that it is okay for them to do the same. We are changing the culture of womanhood from one of exhaustion to one of empowered presence. Your body is changing, yes. Your life is changing. But this is not a decline. It is an opportunity to rebuild your life on a foundation of self-respect.
I love that. A foundation of self-respect. To our listeners, take a moment today to look at your energy leaks. Where are you saying yes when your soul is screaming no? Start small. A small boundary is still a victory. Your health, your hormones, and your heart will thank you for it.
You are worth the effort it takes to protect your peace. You are not a machine. You are a woman in a beautiful stage of evolution. Don't be afraid to take up space and protect your light. If this episode spoke to you, please share it with a woman in your life who might be struggling to find her no. Let's grow this community of evolving women together. Thank you for being with us today on She's Evolving. Remember, your body is changing, but it's not the end. It's a brand new beginning. We'll see you in the next episode. And that brings us to a point that many of our listeners struggle with, Elena. When we talk about boundaries, we aren't just talking about a no that we say to a boss or a pushy neighbor. We are talking about the internal architecture of our lives. For women in our age group, the 40s, 50s, and beyond, we have often spent decades being the fixers, the nurturers, and the ones who hold the social fabric together. We've been conditioned to believe that our value is directly tied to our availability. So when we start setting boundaries, it feels like we are dismantling our very identity. It's terrifying because we wonder, if I stop doing everything for everyone, who will I be? Will I still be loved?
That is so profound, Julia. And from a physiological standpoint, that terror you're describing isn't just in the mind, it's a full body experience. When we live without boundaries, we are in a state of chronic high cortisol. Our adrenal glands are working overtime because we are constantly in a vigilance mode, anticipating everyone else's needs before they even voice them. I see women in my clinic every day who are physically depleted. They come in complaining of brain fog, weight gain around the midsection, and extreme fatigue. Often after we look at the blood work, we realize that while there are hormonal shifts happening, the underlying driver is a lifestyle where the word no doesn't exist. Their bodies are literally screaming no because their voices won't.
It's the body's no, exactly as Gabor Mate describes it. If you don't learn to say no, your body will eventually say it for you, in the form of illness or burnout. I remember a patient of mine, let's call her Sarah. She was 54, a high-level executive, a mother of 2 adult children who still lived at home, and she was also caring for her elderly mother. Sarah was the ultimate yes woman. She felt that setting a boundary with her children about doing their own laundry or telling her boss she wouldn't answer emails after 8 p.m. was an admission of failure. She felt she was less than if she wasn't superhuman. We had to work through the good girl syndrome, that lingering childhood need to be compliant to be worthy.
It's interesting you mentioned the good girl syndrome, because in the medical world, we see how that manifests as a lack of self-advocacy. Women who don't set boundaries in their personal lives often don't set them with their doctors either. They accept it's just aging as an answer for symptoms that are actually treatable. Setting a boundary is also about saying, my health and my comfort are priorities, and I will not accept a lower quality of life just because I've hit a certain birthday. It's about having the boundary to say, I need more time in this consultation, or I want a second opinion.
Exactly. And let's talk about the sandwich generation aspect, because that is where the boundary lines get the most blurred. We are sandwiched between our children who are navigating their own transitions into adulthood and our parents who are becoming more fragile. It's a heavy load. I often tell my clients that a boundary is not a wall to keep people out, it's a gate that you control. You decide when it opens and when it closes. If you leave the gate open 24/7, the garden of your mental health gets trampled. Elena, how do you see this physical trampling manifest in women who are stuck in that sandwich? It manifests as a total loss of the self-care window. When you are the primary caregiver for 2 generations, you are usually the last person on your own list. You skip your mammograms, you stop exercising because you're too busy, and your nutrition becomes whatever is left over on someone else's plate. This leads to what I call metabolic resentment. Your metabolism slows down not just because of age, but because of the stress-induced inflammation from never resting. When we talk about healthy boundaries as a tool for self-care, we are literally talking about life-saving measures. A boundary that allows you to go for a 30-minute walk alone is a medical necessity, not a luxury.
I love that term, metabolic resentment. It's so descriptive. And on the emotional side, that resentment turns into a poison. We start to resent the very people we love because we feel obligated rather than inspired to help them. A healthy boundary actually preserves the relationship. If I tell my daughter, I can't babysit this weekend because I need to rest, I am preventing the resentment that would build up if I said yes while feeling exhausted. By saying no, I am protecting the love I have for her. I am showing her that her mother is a human being with limits, which, by the way, is a beautiful lesson for her to learn for her own life. That's a crucial point, Julia. We are modeling for the next generation. If our daughters see us burning ourselves at both ends, they will think that is the price of being a woman. But let's dive into some of the myths, because I know many women listening are thinking, this sounds great in theory, but my family would revolt if I started setting boundaries now. That's the biggest fear, isn't it? The revolt myth. The idea that if we change the rules of the game midlife, everyone will leave or be angry. And here's the hard truth. Some people will be annoyed, specifically the people who benefited most from you having no boundaries. If someone gets angry when you set a boundary, it's usually a sign that the boundary was desperately needed. But in most cases, people adapt. They learn to find their own socks, they learn to cook a meal, or they learn to respect your quiet hour. The world doesn't fall apart. You just stop being the only one holding it up.
And what about the myth of the selfish woman? We've been taught that focusing on ourselves is the definition of selfishness. In medicine, we know that you cannot pour from an empty cup. If your biological cup is empty, no sleep, poor nutrition, high stress, you are actually less effective at helping others. You're reactive, you're irritable, and your cognitive function is lower. So being selfish by setting boundaries is actually the most selfless thing you can do for your family, because they get a version of you that is present and healthy.
I often tell my patients to replace the word selfish with self-stewardship. You are the steward of your own life. You are the only one who can truly know your limits. Another myth is that boundaries have to be aggressive. You don't have to scream or be cold. A boundary can be set with immense kindness. I love you, and the answer is no. I hear that you're struggling, and I can listen for 10 minutes, but then I need to go to sleep. It's about being firm but gentle.
It's about respect, ultimately, respecting your own biology and your own time. As we move toward the end of our talk today, I want to emphasize that this is a practice. You don't wake up one day and suddenly have perfect boundaries. It's a muscle you build. You start small. Maybe the first boundary is just not answering the phone during dinner. Then maybe it's saying no to a committee you don't have the heart for. Each no to something that drains you is a yes to your own health and longevity.
Exactly, Elena. And as we always say here on She's Evolving, this stage of life is not about fading away. It's about refining who we are. It's about shedding the skins that no longer fit, like the skin of the people pleaser, and stepping into a more authentic, powerful version of ourselves. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect that tells the world, I am here, I am valuable, and my needs matter.
It has been such an enlightening conversation today, Julia. To all our listeners, we want you to take a moment today to identify one area where you feel squeezed. Where do you feel that resentment or that physical tension? That is exactly where a boundary needs to be drawn. Start there. Your body and your mind will thank for it.
And remember, you are not doing this alone. There is a whole community of us, women over 40, who are learning these same lessons right alongside you. We are all evolving together. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend who might be feeling a bit overwhelmed. Let's spread this message of self-care and respect. Your journey toward a healthier, more balanced life is just beginning. Your body is changing, your life is changing, but you have the tools to navigate this with grace and strength. Thank you for being with us today on She's Evolving. We'll see you in the next episode, where we'll continue to explore what it means to live vibrantly and authentically in this beautiful second act of life. Until then, take care of yourself. You are worth it. Goodbye for now, and keep evolving.